both break your brain and make you rethink your whole life. Words like, I thought you had the keys to the handcuffs. Or wait, this isn't my baby. This is a show about such words that have happened to me. The first one starts when I was walking past a restaurant with outdoor seating, and there was a man sitting alone at a table. He was talking on the phone. And he answered a question that I couldn't hear with 7 words that will stick with me forever. He said, "It's in the safe with the dildo." I repeat that. It's in the safe with the dildo. So few words that teach us so much. Let's review. The first thing we learned is this man owns a very expensive, fancy fake penis. Because you're not just going to put any old random dildo into a safe. It's got to be worth it, right? But I'm sure some of you are thinking, well, how expensive can a dildo really be? Don't worry, I am nothing if not a man of science. I did the research and fucked up my algorithm pretty badly. And the most expensive one I could find was this one. Tom's of Finland, big old thing, which one reviewer described as a magnificent collector's piece, and so worth the investment. Because as we all know, giant dildos that somebody else had used is always appreciating value. But it's only $293 and 3 stars. I don't know what kind of self-respecting person is going to put a 3-star dildo in their naked places. So my search continued until I came across the very real, jewel-encrusted Pearl Royale, valued at $1.3 million. That is real, and that is for people with very discerning naked places. That merits a safe. By a quick round of applause, how many people here, given the opportunity, would pleasure themselves with their Pearl Royale? Please, feel free to applaud with that. Now, almost all of you said no. I will say that in my research, they made one without the jewels, and everybody who tried it said it was mind-blowing. Which is where we get the expression, don't judge a dildo by the fact that it looks like it was intended to kill fancy werewolves. But as I'm sure all of you know, the Pearl Royale is currently on tour in museums in Europe. So unless he like full-on Ocean Eleven'd it, it's not the dildo that he has. Although I'm sure some of us can agree on places he may have used it to sneak it out of the museum. Yeah. So basically that leaves us with the fact that the fancy penis he has is somewhere between Tom's of Finland and Pearl Royale. Which brings us to the second thing that we've learned. This man owns a safe. Which, in and of itself, isn't particularly weird, but I don't own a safe. Do you guys own a safe? Like, if I had a safe, it would instantly become the most expensive thing in my apartment. I would need another safe to protect that safe. It would turn into a whole vicious safe cycle. And this man's got one for his luxury wang. Which brings us to the third thing that I've learned. This motherfucker owns multiple safes. If he only owned one safe, he would have just said the item is in the safe, but he didn't. He said it's in the safe with the dildo, therefore implying that he has safe A with the mystery item and the dildo, and safe B with God knows what. Guns, drugs, whatever. I think we can all agree this guy lives a pretty crazy life. Which brings us to item number 4. I'm a little jealous of this guy. I don't know if you guys are anything like me, but I am anxious all the time. I am worried about conversations I had 20 minutes ago and 20 years ago. Every time I meet somebody, I'm worried that they think that I'm boring or lame, and I just so much want people to like me, and I worry about what they think of me. But you know who doesn't? A guy who's willing to talk about his fancy fake penis in front of everybody on the street. That guy is secure as fuck with who he is. That simple dude eating outside the Hudson View Diner lives a not one, but two safe life. I think we all kind of want to be a little bit more like that. The second time I heard something that broke my brain and made me rethink my whole life. This time, the things came at me in such quick succession that I didn't even have time to process them. So I was at the ear, nose, and throat doctor to see if I had sleep apnea. It was the first time I'm going to see this doctor, and within a few minutes he asked me to do that thing where you open your mouth, or stick out your tongue and say, ah, which I am not going to demonstrate for reasons that will become clear in a second. But he asked me to do it, and his response was, oh my. Which is never the response you want from a doctor, for them to recoil in fear. Again, let's do a quick audience participation. On 3, everybody stick out your tongue and say, ah. 1, hold on. 1, 2, 3. Ah.
Oh my.
See? It hurts, right? And George, the guy's filled with love, but it still hurts. And I was like, what? What's wrong? And he said, well, your tongue, it's very wide. Which is not a thing I was prepared to be insecure about. I am fully prepared to be insecure about a whole host of things. The way that I look, the way that I act, the fact that I can't spit for some reason or swim, all of those things I'm prepared to be insecure about, although please don't bring them up, because I'm very fragile. But when it came to tongue width, I kind of thought I was gone. Now, all I can think about is licking ice cream and lollipops. And I'm sure some of you were thinking, Dustin, I get the ice cream thing, it's delicious. But lollipops, you're a full-grown adult. How often do lollipops come up? To which I say, more often than you might think. Because I, like all of you out there, as a kid, were presented with a very important question.
Mr. Owl,
A good question. Let's find out. 1, 2, 3.
How many licks does it take to get to the Tootsie Roll center of a Tootsie Pop? The world may never know.
And unlike that piece of shit owl, I am a fucking man of science. So I did the fucking research. And the answer is 442. And you know how I know that? It's because every couple of years, I buy a Tootsie Roll Pop and I lick it till I get to the Tootsie Roll center. But now, I'm not weird. You're weird for not doing it. We all saw that commercial. But now, I don't know if my dad is thrown off by my extra wide tongue. Before I could process any of that, he continues by saying, your tongue, it's like a king-size bed in a small room. Really? That's your fucking medical opinion as a doctor? I didn't realize that we were at the Comedy Central roast level of our relationship because I met you fucking today. Just throw shit out like that. Then his face gets very serious. He looks at me and he goes, how do you sleep at night? And I was like, how do you sleep at night, motherfucker? And he's like, no. I mean, what position do you sleep in? I was like, oh, I sleep on my side. He kind of curled up a little bit. And he gets this look of relief on his face. And just goes about his business. Why? He's like, oh, well, it's your body's way of protecting itself, because if you slept on your back, your wide tongue might fall in the back of your throat and choke you to death, and then you die. I was like, what? That's a fucking thing? Because a minute ago, I was just worried about little kids pointing at me and making fun of my tongue. And now, I find out that if I just roll over weird in the middle of the night, I could fucking die. That's fucked up. You're fucked up, man. Sometimes, the thing that breaks your brain and makes you rethink your whole life comes from your own mouth. Like, I think I'm having a heart attack. Which, at any age, will throw you, but at 46, oh man. The whole thing started on a Friday, around 9:30 in the morning in January. I had the day off, so I was watching CNN because I like to wake up to finding the ways the world's on fire. And I start to get this pain, this like burning in my chest. And at first, I thought, maybe it was a panic attack. I don't mean to brag, but I'm kind of a connoisseur of panic. Big ones, small ones, all kinds. And you know that thing where they say if you do anything for 10,000 hours, you're an expert at it? Me and panic attack. But this didn't feel like anything I'd had before. And I started to sweat, started to get exhausted and dizzy. Then my left arm started to hurt, and I was like, well, that's not good. I've seen that on TV. That's bad. So I did the thing that anyone does when potentially faced with a life-threatening situation to make themselves feel better. I Googled it, because that's never gone wrong. I looked up the symptoms. Okay, let's see what we got here. Chest pain? Yep. Cold sweats? Mm-hmm. Dizzy? Cool. Left arm pain? I fucking told you guys that one was bad. And it was. And then extreme exhaustion. Well, fuck, man. So I called my wife, Joy, who was already at work, to ask her what I should do. I picked the phone and I said, hey, I don't mean to scare you, but I'm having chest pains. I think it might be a heart attack. What should I do? Should I just sort of like wait it out? You guys are ahead of me. I cannot be trusted with protecting myself or knowing when I am in danger. A few years prior to this, I was having my friend Jamie over at the apartment. Joy and I had Jamie over, and Jamie was far away, so she was going to spend the evening sleeping on our couch. And around midnight, I decide to go to bed, and I leave Jamie and Joy talking on the couch. And just as I get into bed, I start to feel this rumble in my tongue. Like I have to pout. but a lot. And Joy and I have this, we try to come up with cute things for gross things because we've been together for a while. So whenever somebody has that situation, we refer to it as having downstairs adventures. You're welcome to use that if you want. And guys, this was the adventure of a lifetime. Indiana Jones could not handle this level of thing. But the problem was that Jamie and Joy were in the living room, which is right next to the bathroom. And I am a gentleman. I'm not about to have an extreme downstairs adventure right next to these wonderful ladies. So I stifle it, and I go to bed, and I will deal with it in the morning. The next morning comes, pain is still there, no adventure to be had. That happens again the next day, and then the next day. And much like the miracle of Hanukkah, the pain that was supposed to last one night lasted 8 crazy nights. And then it went away, and I thought, great, I'm good. And Joy was like, no. You're not supposed to be in pain for 8 straight days. Go get it checked out. So the very next 3 months later, I got my appendix removed. Because on the first day, it had ruptured. And then I ignored it while it just poured poison into my body for a full week. And after that week, my insides were like, hey, I don't think this idiot's going to do anything about it. And it sealed itself up. But it was just filling with poison. And if I hadn't listened to Joy, who knows what would have happened. So, I cannot be trusted to take care of myself. But what I didn't want to have happen was I didn't want to call Joy, get her all scared about everything. You know, I didn't want to go to the hospital, spend the whole day there, and find out it's something stupid like heartburn or something, you know, like that, like some idiotic thing. And I've gotten her scared, and I've gotten me scared. I just didn't want that to happen. Joy heard my voice, and she immediately went into business mode. You know, she got very serious, and her voice got low and soft and very calm. She sounded like a late night radio DJ. You know, like it would have been kind of sexy if I wasn't actively dying.
You're not going to wait it out. You're going to go directly to the hospital right now, and I'm going to meet you there as soon as I can. Everything is going to be fine. And coming up next, in your eyes, you're listening to Love Songs at Night with Joy Masters.
So, I could tell from her tone that this was a non-negotiable situation, that everything she could affected was going to be all right, but get your ass to the fucking hospital and stay tuned for 45 minutes of love songs from the 80s, 90s, and today. So I hung up with her, and I immediately called an Uber, because ambulances are very expensive. This is the part in the show where I feel as though I am legally and morally obligated to say, don't do that. Who knows what could have happened on the way to the hospital. That being said, I saved like $400. But 100% don't do it. Even though I got to the hospital faster than if I'd called an ambulance because there was an Uber on the street. Do not do it. I did it and nothing went wrong, but don't. But if you are going to do it, tell the Uber driver that you're having chest pains, because they will get you there very quickly. They do not want somebody dying in their car. There's a lot of paperwork. It may fuck up your Uber rating. I will say that. I don't know if you guys know this, but you can actually look up how many one-star ratings you have, and I've gotten 4 in my life, which is insane, because I am a goddamn delight when I'm not there. Okay, so about 15 minutes after I get off the phone with Joy, I'm at New York Presbyterian. And I get there. And, okay, so for those of you that don't know me, I'm legally blind. I have a genetic eye condition called retinitis pigmentosa, which means I have tunnel vision. It also means that when I'm going around, I use a cane, like this. Now, one of the things I discovered was that if you show up complaining of chest pains with a cane, they do the paperwork for you. Yeah, it's great. The world's generally like nicer when I have the cane. Like people are very considerate. I try not to take advantage of it. But okay, one time I did. So I was at the Apple store trying to get a new iPhone, and I get there, and the manager informs me that hey. The new phone doesn't come out until tomorrow. We have them in the back, but we can't sell them to you until tomorrow. You'll just have to come back tomorrow. Right? I got real small. And I held up the cane and I was like, but I can't come back tomorrow. And he gave me the phone before everyone else in the hard not to take advantage of it, except one other time. Joy and I, for our anniversary, will usually go to a place called Del Frisco's. It's a steakhouse in the city. And this particular year, we forgot to make a reservation. And we got there, and the place is packed. And Joy's trying to talk to the guy and explain the situation, and nothing is working. So once again, come on. And it's like, but it's our anniversary. 2 minutes later, we were sitting at a table. I love that because it had nothing to do with my blindness. There was no reason that he should have helped. And again, do I feel guilty about these things? Sometimes, sure. But here's the way I figure it. There was one time when I was walking past a restaurant with outdoor seating that was packed with people, and I walked full speed, crotch first, into a fire hydrant. Everybody saw it. So as far as I'm concerned, I want to get an iPhone a day early. Cool. All right, so the other thing I discovered is when you go in complaining of chest pains, you go to the top of the list. Like, you are very important to these people. Within a minute, they were taking my blood pressure, which was through the roof. Within another minute, they brought me back to get an EKG, which was going to tell what was going on with my heart. And they did the EKG, and they brought back the results, and they showed nothing. Which meant, in that moment, I went from being the most important person to just some fucking guy. Heart attack person gets a lot of attention. Just some fucking guy can fuck right off. And what they do with just some guy is they put you in a wheelchair and just roll you to a corner. And they say, well, we'll get to you when we fucking get to you. So I'm sitting there waiting. Joy gets there as quickly as she can from work, and when she sees me, she can tell right away that I'm in a bad way. And she does the thing that always puts a smile on my face when I'm having a tough time. She sent me videos of monkeys being adorable.
Oh my God.
Specifically these. And I'm sure as you're looking at this, part of you, especially this guy, is saying, hey, not all those are technically monkeys. To which I say, I don't have the time to learn the different types of monkeys. There are monkeys and big monkeys, which are called gorillas, and there was a baby duck in there. I also like baby ducks. But it wasn't getting the job. I was freaking out, you know. Pain was just getting worse. I couldn't even take a deep breath because there was so much pressure on my chest. I could just rock back and forth, and all I really wanted in the world was to lay down at that point. I thought maybe that would help. Around 1 o'clock, or 3 hours after we had gotten to the emergency room, a doctor finally comes over, and he says, hey, we did some blood work. There's one test that's a little wonky, so we're going to run it again because we may have messed it up. Anyway, in the meantime, don't eat or drink or anything just in case, and okay, bye. Now, if Joy were telling this story, she would say that this is the point where I got a little rude with the nurses and doctors. I don't like to toot my own horn, but I am not a rude person. I once got accused of being Canadian. That is how not rude I am. So I don't know what she's talking about. But I really needed to lie down. So yes, I a little bit went off on the doctors and nurses. Again, not rude, just a lot of like, this is unacceptable, this is ridiculous. Why is this happening to me? And 15 minutes later, I got a bed. It was a gurney in a hallway, but it was a bed. So maybe I'm a little rude now. I don't know. around 7 p.m., another doctor comes over and he says, hey, that one test is coming back a little wonky still, so I'm going to show it to the cardiologist just to be safe, but we're pretty sure we know what the issue is. Great. We think you have something called GERD. And I was like, okay, it's not a heart attack. What's GERD? He's like, it's really bad heartburn. And I was like, fuck you. That was the fucking thing, man. But it's okay. It's fine. It's not a heart attack. That's great. And what it also meant was that Joy and I could finally get something to eat. Because we hadn't eaten since the night before. It'd been like 20 hours. Or, for those of you that are enjoying the Jewish holiday references, almost a full Yom Kippur. So Joy went to a diner nearby, and brought us back burgers and fries. So, while we were in the emergency room. Yeah, a little while later, the cardiologist comes by and explains that, I reviewed that test, and it does kind of show that your heart is going under some extreme stress. Because what it was testing for was something called troponin, which is an enzyme that your heart excretes when it feels like it's under attack. A normal person has about 20 whatever units in their system. I had 646. Yeah. So she was, and she, and she says, that may be, that may be an indicator that there's the blockage somewhere, in your chest. But you're young, so I don't really know. Do you have a history of heart disease in your family? Yes. And the answer to the question is yes. But as I was sitting there, it occurred to me that if I was having a heart attack, that I might be the first person to be eating a hamburger while literally having a heart attack. And I was like, no, wait, Wisconsin exists. But in New York, I'm sure, and Buffalo exists. But in that hospital, I'm sure I was the only person eating a burger while possibly having a heart attack. So, like I said, the answer to the question was yes. My dad had emergency triple bypass surgery, open heart surgery. And my grandfather, on my mother's side, I was 9 years old. And I would remember this day for many reasons. But one of them was the fact that it was the network TV premiere of The Empire Strikes Back. Which was a big fucking deal, yeah. You younger people might remember, but this was the 80s. We had 4 channels. When a Star Wars movie came on, you invited people over. And we did. I was living with my grandmother and my grandfather at the time, and we invited my uncle over. And they were in the kitchen having a meal before the movie, but I was not going to take any chances. I was locked in front of the TV playing with my Star Wars toys. Then I hear a loud noise in the kitchen, and I hear my grandmother scream. I run in there, and I find my uncle over my grandfather trying to pick food out of his mouth because he had fallen over mid-bite. My grandmother grabs me, pulls me out. But I had seen everything. I found out the next day that he had a major heart attack, which meant part of his heart literally exploded. And he was dead before he hit the ground. So yeah, I do have a history of heart disease in my family. And the cardiologist said, well, that changes everything. That means that much more likely that this is what the situation is. We have to get you an angiogram, which will, check for blockages and hopefully fix them as soon as possible. What followed was an argument over what as soon as possible. From the hospital's point of view, at this point it was 9:30 on a Friday night. And they explained that, well, there's nobody really here to do the procedure at 9:30 on a Friday night. It might have to wait till Monday. Oh. My stance was, well, it wasn't 9:30 on a Friday night when I fucking got here. So maybe call somebody. You're not going to leave me like this for 3 fucking days. We eventually compromised on doing it the following morning. And by that I mean I would not shut up until we agreed to do it the following morning. Thank you. But what that meant was that Joy and I were going to need to spend the evening in the ER. I don't know if you've ever spent a full evening on a Friday night in an emergency room in New York City. I do not recommend it. It is a virtual cornucopia of crazy people. I could have just done this show exclusively on the people that we interacted with that night. I could talk about the guy who admitted to shooting somebody in the face earlier that day. Like he had come from it. I could talk about the guy who helped Joy get a chair and then proceeded to try and steal all the drugs from the nurse's station. As he did most nights. Or the whole host of people that Joy was absolutely convinced were trying to steal my sheets. But for tonight, I will just focus on one lady that Joy and I refer to as the regional theater lady. Let me set the scene once again. I'm going to try and come over here if that's okay. It's 3:30 in the morning at this point. I'm, again, on a gurney and randomly in the middle of the hallway. The pain in my chest is just as bad, if not worse, than it's been this whole time. I'm tired. Joy is tired. I'm using a blanket. I'm using my jacket as a blanket and her scarf as a pillow / thing to block my eyes because it's super bright in an ER all the time. And Joy's sitting on a chair at the end of the gurney, also trying to get some sleep. And doing whatever we can to close our eyes when we hear this lady say,
Can I call my mother?
which in and of itself isn't particularly weird, except she just kept saying it, but each time with a slight variation.
Can I call my mother? 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 Can I call my mother?
It was like she was auditioning for the worst regional theater play ever, for which she had one line. And she got sidetracked to the ER. And guys, she was not going to get the part. We all just wanted to sleep, but she just kept saying it over and over again. Can I call my mother? Can I call my mother? Can I call my mother? Until eventually, she slipped into the thing where she sort of started answering the question. In a Dr. Seussy kind of way.
Where is my mother? Is she at home? Is she on the phone? Is she in a car? Is she in a bar? Can I call my mother?
Everyone wanted to murder this lady. Just wouldn't stop talking. After a little while, eventually, there was quiet, and I think everybody in the ER, especially Joy and I, were like, okay, now we can rest. She is done. And then she said,
Can I call my mother?
where the fuck did that come from? Is that a fucking Jamaican accent? Are you kidding? Joy and I lost our shit. We laughed so hard. Breaking into a fucking Jamaican accent. I think a lot of other people did too. Because the truth was, at that point, we just needed a release of some kind. You know, like, we were so stressed and upset, and it had been such a difficult day. And then this silly lady did this thing. And the truth was, like, she was having a hard time. We were all having a hard time. But we just needed something to cheer us up. It's like gallows humor. You know? Like, sometimes you just need that thing. All right, I'm going to take a little bit of a left, but go with me if you guys don't mind. There was this tradition at my high school where, I don't know if this happened at your high school, but at Northport High School, where I went to school, there was this thing where if somebody tripped in the hallway or like dropped something in the cafeteria, everybody would stop what they were doing and go, let's try it. Audience participation. On three, follow me. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that was it. That was exactly it. 400 people would stop whatever they were doing and chant dick to somebody. And most people found it humiliating because it was. But there was something about it that I really appreciated. See, high school students are douchebags. And they're going to make fun of somebody if they do anything wrong or weird or trip or whatever because of their aforementioned douchebaggery. But they would do this thing and then it would be over. So like, you would take your public dicking and then everybody would forget about that thing. You wouldn't be the person who tripped in the hallway. It would just be done. You'd get dicked and you'd be done. And there was something nice about that. After I graduated from high school, people stopped doing that, which is good. But it stuck with me. And sometimes, when people would be telling a sad story, it would creep back in there. Somebody would be like, hey, you know, my aunt broke her ankle and she's in the hospital. I'd be like, yeah. Yeah, just to be clear, I would not say that out loud. But, you know, there'd be somebody like, oh, you know, my roommate just, you know, got dumped by her boyfriend. I'm like, yeah. Just to be clear, would not say it. But what would happen would be, they'd be saying their thing, and then I would think it, and then I would smile and giggle. And they would say, hey, I'm telling you a sad story. Why are you smiling and giggling? I can't tell you. I would never tell anybody except for a group of people who paid to be here. I did mention it to one of my friends. I was like, hey, do you ever think this kind of thing? And he's like, oh yeah, no, all the time. I was like, cool. So there are two monsters. Okay. So it's around 11:30 the following morning on Saturday, when I finally escape the emergency room, and they bring me up to get the angiogram to look for blockages and take care of it. And as they're bringing me up, they explain there are 3 options, you know, coming out of this procedure. 1, they get in there, they don't find any blockages, and then we look for another source of pain for my chest, another thing that's causing the pain in my chest. Option 2, they find a blockage, they put in a stent to open it up, and the pain goes away. And option 3, they find a blockage that they can't get to, then they immediately stop the procedure and perform open heart surgery. It's like, okay, option 1 and 2 then. Let's focus on those. And of course they continue with, you know, and as is the case with any major procedure like this, there's always the risk of complications and death. Like, do I have an option? I said, no. Let's do it. So they bring me in, and let me explain the procedure to y'all. First thing they do is they strap your arm down. They make an incision in your wrist so they can insert like a big rope with a camera on the end of it. Technically, they give you an option. You can either go for the wrist or the crotch. I chose wrist. I don't know who's choosing crotch. I don't know anybody who's ever said, yes, please, stab me in the crotch and put a rope in the hole. Nobody said that. So they've got this rope, and they kind of just drive it up your arm, right? And again, I am not a doctor, but I don't know how you drive a rope. None of it makes any sense, but they drive it up there, and then when it gets into your chest, it shoots out ink, and then your blood flows, and they look to see where, you know, blockages are. And then if there is one, there's like a little secret compartment in the rope. And they have a little stent in there and it'll open up. It'll open the thing. So it's a serious rope. And the best part about this whole thing, he said sarcastically, is that you are wide the fuck awake the whole time. Yeah, not like in a haze. Like you're fucking there, man. Like I could have done math. That's how there I was. And I don't know if you've ever had something that wasn't supposed to be there, actively moving around your chest. But it's got a very chest buster from Aliens kind of feel. It is upsetting. It doesn't want to be there. It's very disconcerting. I think we can both agree that we are both disconcerted. The other thing is, your wrist is not like having a rope in it. It hurts, and I figure, well, you're going to keep me awake this whole fucking time. I'm going to tell you if I'm in pain. So I did. I said, the rope hurts. And they said, oh, don't worry. We'll give you more fentanyl. Sorry. I don't know if you've seen the TV. Fentanyl bad. Guys. Fentanyl good. Again, it's a part of the show. I am morally and legally obligated to say, don't do that. Do not take fentanyl. But if you're in a rope in your arm situation, there are worse things. I guess I'm saying, like, save it exclusively for rope in your chest, kind of thing. So then I hear the doctor say, "We found it. We found the problem." As it turned out, I had a 100% blockage in one subartery and an 80% blockage in another. They put a stent in the complete blockage, and I had to come back 6 weeks later for the other one, do this whole fucking thing again. But after 20 minutes, it was over. As they were finishing up, I asked, so does that mean I really had a heart attack? Because through this whole thing, I was like, well, it's got to be something else. It's got to be something silly. At this point, I was really cheering for Gerd. Because it didn't make sense. I'm 46 years old. I go to the gym 4 times a week. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't do drugs, other than the fentanyl addiction that It didn't make any sense. And he said, yes. Yes, you just had a heart attack. Man, there's something about going from that I think I am to yes, you just had a heart attack. It takes all the deniability. And because I'm a fucking man of science, I looked it up, and when people have a heart attack, 12% don't survive the day. So, I guess you could say we were lucky that day. It didn't feel like it. So, eventually then they wheel me down to my own room. Unfortunately not in the ER. Joy's been amazing through this whole fucking thing. My parents come, they're amazing. They take Joy out to dinner because she just needed a break, By the time she gets back, most of the pain in my chest had gone away. And it was just calm, There was no, can I call my mother lady? Nobody trying to steal my shoes. And I just needed to get some sleep. So I told her she could go home, and she went home, and she needed sleep, and the hospital basically made her leave. As I'm lying there, the business mode slowly starts to fade away. We've done everything that we could do at that point, and all that's left is quiet. And the quiet, everything, I think it's really real. You start to think about the day. I almost died. With no warning at all. It's just been over like that. I started to think about the day before when I called Joy. And how I couldn't tell her at the time, and I don't even know if I really processed it, but when I was calling her, I think partially I was calling her to say goodbye. Be her voice one last time, in case the whole thing didn't turn out like I hoped it would. And if it didn't, I didn't want her to find me. I couldn't have that. Joy and I have this thing where whenever I go away for work, and she's going to come home to an empty apartment, I leave her a bunch of post-it notes. Little notes that say, you know, I love you, you're pretty, and you're adorable, and you're wonderful, and all that. That way, when she's coming home to an empty apartment, she knows that she's not really alone. I mean, but not like in a creepy way. But, but I realized that call might have been my final post-it. Joy went home that night, drank a full bottle of wine, cried over the last 2 days, and I pretty much did the same without the wine. So the next morning, I get a call. Before visiting hours even happened, I get a call from my friend, Randy. Randy's been a friend since high school. He's one of the people I've known the longest. He's one of my best friends in the world. Great guy. So I look at the phone, pick it up, and before I can even say anything, he says to me, in the way that only a friend you've known that long can say, he's the guy from earlier. And bizarrely, it fucking made me feel better. Because I knew that was his way of saying, yeah, some shit went down, but you're okay now. You know, you're not that guy. You're not heart attack guy. Even though I'm actively doing a show about it. But you're going to be all right. You know, everything's going to be okay. Although I don't know for sure that it's ever going to be the same again. A few weeks later, I started thinking back to Fancy Fake Penis Man. And how he doesn't really care what anybody thinks of him. And how much I do. And it occurred to me that in light of everything that happened, why the fuck should I give a shit what anybody thinks of me? Who cares if somebody's judging me or anything like that? Fuck those people. Again, because I'm a stupid man of science, I looked it up. And 1 in 5 people who have a heart attack don't survive the year. 1 in 5. That is an intimidating, horrifying number to stare down. Luckily, I'm out of that window. I have gone back to the hospital twice with chest pains, but I'm out of that window. Hopefully you could say the worst that's over. It's a rule of threes thing. I think I can do one more. I don't know that many Jewish holidays. You try working Purim seamlessly into a show. On a side note, the second time I went back for chest pains, the cardiologist asked me how long I've been, having the pains, and I said about 18 hours. And he's like, oh, well then, it can't be a heart attack. If you were having a heart attack for 18 hours, you'd be dead. And I was like, dude, my record's 26. When you think about it, I survived a full day worth of heart attack, 3 months with a ruptured appendix, and a lifetime of my tongue trying to murder me. I might be a Highlander. I'm not saying for sure that I am. I'm saying it's possible I can't be killed. I don't know. I can get fucked up real bad. I might not be able to get killed. But for you mortals, tomorrow's not promised to anyone. So, in the meantime, be proud of who you are. Be you. Be the most you that you can be, because all that other stuff is ridiculous. It doesn't matter. Because I'll tell you right now, when I was lying in that bed, I wasn't thinking about people making fun of me or my wide tongue. I was thinking about one thing. There was only one thing that was important. This lady. Wonderful lady. I know she had literally saved my life so many times. And how her time wasn't done, and how I needed to get back to her, how important she was. So, truth is, I'm not jealous of Fancy Fake Penis Man anymore. Because I realized that he got his power from finding something that he loved the most in the world, presumably this. And that I too, and holding it close, and I too could find that from my friends, and my family, and my metaphorical fancy fake penis. She does not like being called that, but it's my show. So I'll leave you with this, to break your brain and make you rethink your whole life. When you leave here, be proud of who you are. Love who you are. And while you're at it, find your fancy fake penis. Keep it safe. Because everything else is bullshit.
Yeah.